Start you with a question about
Sure, buddy.
Lawrence, because I've talked to some guys about the energy he brings, and they all kind of said he's a guy in that room that brings a lot of energy.
Yeah.
What is it about him?
I think we all appreciate his energy. I certainly do. I think he brings that same energy throughout the week in practice and meetings, so we can all feed off of it. Sometimes I think it's a game that's requires a lot of passion, and he has a lot of passion for the game, a lot of passion for the team. So we just got to make sure it's always channeled in the right direction.
There's a lot of personality in that room. Some guys have said it kind of starts with you, honestly. But I mean, what is that room like on a typical day?
There's a lot of things going on there. The way we like it. I mean, sometimes it's chaotic. Sometimes, hopefully it's there's a lot of content going on in there, and learning from our mistakes, constant quest to improve. And just like today, going today, another day at work and finding ways to get better. And I thought that's exactly what we did, the way we approached our meetings today, and the way the guys approached practice.
In this last game, Richardson and Vernon both played more snaps than they had all year by maybe 10, 12 or so. And of course, some of that had to do with there were probably more offensive snaps for Seattle, but I read some of that possibly as you guys sensed the urgency of the game, and those two were going to be on the field a little bit more. But what was going on in them playing so much?
Well, we've tried to rotate the guys. I think we're right on plan as far as in week 6, with based off of percentages of how we look at our 8 individuals that are participating in the game, of where we want to rep them from a rep standpoint of depending on how many total reps in the game and the percentages we get per guy. So I think we're right on target as far as how we've been repping the guys. At the end of the day, there's 11 guys in the field. We operate in a 4-3 defense. I'd absolutely love to get as many guys out there as possible and as many reps as possible. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a 4-down front, and only so many guys can play an X amount of snaps. So our starters are going to obviously be playing more. And when the other guys do come in, we need a spark from them. That's what we expect. And we expect the level of play not to drop one bit. And I think we've seen flashes of that. Guys like Chad Thomas coming in and sparking us, running to the ball and collecting a fumble in the Baltimore game. Devereaux Lawrence tipping the ball and getting an interception. Should have had another one in the following week. And then, last game with Olivier causing that turnover on a 3rd and 1 critical situation, and Devereaux being in his gap and recovering another fumble for us. So that's what we need out of those guys. We need those guys to spark us with energy and solid play.
Would you tell me if there's anything to this theory in your mind, and the theory being that Garrett, obviously good, Larry's a good player, and Vernon is a good player, and Richardson's a good player. But those are 4 good players who haven't quite reached the point where they're playing great football together, and that's a transition that you're hoping to get to. That's the theory. What about that?
Yeah, our expectations are really high internally, and the standard we've set there is extremely high. So we're striding towards that. I think we have plenty of things we need to all improve on, and that's what we're striding towards. So I think we've seen flashes of that throughout the season when the guys are playing together, rushing the passer together, playing with great gap integrity up front. And then there's times where we're not doing that, and that's what we got to clean up. Starts with me, and then the individuals being accountable for their job. And that's what we're striding towards in this bye week, is improving every aspect of the game possible we can.
In this, go ahead, Dan.
Miles has the sacks. He's got 9 sacks. I think he's tied for the league lead. How much more can you get out of him?
Well, I think Miles has to be very consistent with his technique. I think that's what he's challenging himself to do. We've seen it already with some more variety when it comes to the pass rush. He's got to be more consistent when those critical times of the game there, that he can trust the technique that he's working throughout the offseason and implement that in game time situations. I think he's playing discipline is really important. I think it's important to himself. I think he cares about his teammates. He cares about the organization, and that will show with as we continue in the season as he plays more discipline. He started out, I think, the season after Game 2, had 5 penalties, and since then, in the last 4 games, I believe he's had 2 penalties. He negated his 3rd sack of the game against Seattle when he aligned offsides, and those are things where it just comes down to those discipline plays. It's your responsibility to check that you are on sides, and our responsibility up front to make sure that it's more important that we're not trying to time out the ball or guess, but that we can still get elite takeoff, but when the ball moves.
How do you coach guys, in this? I mean, obviously you said the roughing calls. Some of them, have been obvious, but, in today's game, it's so borderline with some of those roughing calls. So how do you kind of coach guys around some of that stuff?
Well, we got to stay within the rules. For example, this last game, as you watch the film, I think the main coaching point is, the rule, my understanding is you're taking one step, and so if you take one step, we got to protect the quarterback in today's game. So as we follow through there, if you're striking a quarterback within one step, then I think you got to show the effort of putting your hands in the air and not following through, or striking a quarterback then falling hard on him. And I think that's what guys got to practice, and we got to do on game day. Still stay within that rule of one step. So, as we watched this morning, part of our self-scout this morning was watching every critical error up front, every explosive run, what we can do better, and we watched every single penalty as a group. So as you go through that there, the only coaching point I have as far as this last game as Larry's roughing the passer calls, we got to, as we're striking the quarterback, got to put our hands up there and show that we're not trying to follow through, within that one step to the QB.
I know you're not a draft analyst, but you look at Chad Thomas, who you mentioned a bit ago, and guys like me acknowledge that he was a real high pick in the 3rd round. And kind of a high pick overall.
Mm-hmm.
From that standpoint, my question is, I kind of imagine whether he can be a good starter, or whether he's kind of fallen into the role that might be his career role, and that is a good rotational guy. But how do you see him?
I think that's
he's taken a step already?
I think that's all up to Chad. I think his play is improved if you evaluate his play from week to week. I think as he takes it seriously, it's important to him, and he's accountable of his job. I think he has the length, the ability to change direction. He can defend the C area when he's playing a 6 technique the correct way, with disciplined technique. He can transition and rush the passer. He has the tools to do all that. So there's no doubt in my mind he's capable of playing as a quality starter in this league. I think that'll more so be how important it is to him, and the responsibility he takes, such as executing his assignments and having a lack of mental errors, and then executing the consistency of his technique.
On the line of your comments about Miles working on technique, looking at Vernon, is he kind of a craftsman, where you can look at his film and say that's close to textbook there, or how is he? I mean, he's not an older veteran. I think he's been six years in the league or whatever. But at this point,
I think it's his 8th.
How is he as a craftsman? Let's say.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a veteran when it comes to technique, and he's an individual that we can count on. He's going to do his job. Plays very consistent. He was our production leader in the Seattle game, and you're gonna see solid play out of him. I think he's challenging himself as well as he's now comfortable in the system, the calls, where he can not just do his job, also make some high-impact plays, which we've seen from time to time out of him. And what you don't see out of Olivier or what you do see, excuse me, and what you don't see on maybe a stat sheet is all the plays where he factors in. For example, in this Seattle game, he had 5 factor points, and a factor point comes from, taking out 2 or more blockers on a play, the inside zone read play with Russell where there's an additional blocker coming on the perimeter. He's a guy that's going to do his job, play the cutback and the quarterback, and then from there knock out the additional puller that they're utilizing to go block the second level. So now there's nobody there to block that defensive back, and we can get a negative play in the backfield. Things like that is where he's showing up over and over and helping us contribute toward the success that we've had.
There was a play against Seattle when they were in the end zone, and Miles came, at least from where I was sitting, it looked like he came really close to a strip sack in the end zone. Is that a play that you say to Miles, hey, you need to make that to take that next step, or was it just
when Seattle was in the end zone?
I think they were in their own end zone.
Yeah. The only thing I recall of when they were backed up there, we had our the 2 stops up front with their run to get the ball back. And then when they did go pass, just the opportunity to possibly counter back there and be in the quarterback's throwing lane. That's all I recall about that play.
On the Seattle game, of course you would love to have made a play toward the end to disrupt Wilson, but how complicated is it? Even when you have a talented group, you think, if you're sitting in the stands, hey, we have a good front four, just go blow him up. But how complicated is it to get just one play against a quarterback of that magnitude down the stretch?
I don't know if it's a matter of being complicated. It's just, we got to do it within the scheme and do our job. That's priority number 1, that we're doing our job and we're accountable to each other. And then through our job, that's the difference there, where we can defend the B gap if I'm a 3 technique, but transition immediately when I do get high hat and not necessarily just do my job versus the run. Now it's high hat. I got to split the double team, get in the backfield, and go affect Russell. He's a guy that is obviously very effective when he's out of the pocket and on the run. Going into that game, just executing that rush plan of what we can do to do our best to keep him in the pocket, and doing that in the critical moments of the game. That's the challenge there. That we got to continue to improve at and do a better job at.